Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Capital Markets Day. Thanks for making the time. You've all been very abstemious on the bacon sandwiches. It's good to see a health kick. Today is going to be a presentation-based event, so we're not going to do anything unkind like drag you outside in the glorious sunshine and enjoy the outdoors. But hopefully we will shine a light on some of the newer parts of Interserve, particularly around developments in the various subsets of our support services segment. So, I very much hope it's a worthwhile insight into some of what we do, and as I say, specifically some of the newer activities into which we've expanded in recent times. Sorry, I should put my name up. The other objective for us this morning is for you to get to meet some more of the people that are involved in driving our growth and delivering our success. So you'll be hearing from 5 of my colleagues, and we also have a couple of guest speakers as well. I'll introduce the agenda and the speakers in a little while, but that's what we've got in store for you this morning. There should be plenty of opportunities for Q&A, and obviously, the day is yours really to get out of it what you will. Although for the avoidance of doubt, the usual health warning: we won't be disclosing any new guidance or other price-sensitive data. Certainly not advertently anyway. Before we get into the detailed presentations, I'd like just to give you a quick sit rep on Interserve, and to set that in the context of our strategic focus in recent times. So as you know, we're a broad-based, growing business with many service lines, many geographies, and many sectoral exposures. So there's a degree of complexity, I guess, around us. So to start, I'd like to just sort of share with you how we think about the group and what we believe is at the core of our investment proposition. That's summarised on this slide in 4 main points. So just to run through that very briefly, and then I'll draw out perhaps and exemplify some of them as I go through some later slides. But starting top left, we've got strong positions in our main markets. We're a top 3 player in the services market in the UK. Our equipment services business around the world is pretty much everywhere a top 3 player in its markets. Those 2 sets of activities amount to about 3/4 of our activity. Our construction business in the UK is certainly a top division player, and of course we've got some deep insight into exciting Middle Eastern markets. So we think we're starting from a strong place in terms of our market positioning. The box to the top right looks at some of the characteristics of our market, some of the growth trends, some of the drivers. And again, we think it's an attractive backdrop. Population change, the need for ever-increasing efficiency in public services, the search for rising standards in things that define how we do what we do, health and safety, regulation, other business-critical metrics, are all driving activity upwards into more sophisticated providers. And of course, there's a cyclical upturn characterising some of our markets now. So again, I think we're starting from a pretty healthy place. And within those markets, we've positioned ourselves well for the opportunities that we believe the next few years are going to bring. We've materially expanded the reach of our FM business in the UK. We've built what we think is a unique breadth in frontline public services here in the UK and to some extent internationally. We've been investing heavily for growth in our equipment services business, and we're taking advantage of an upturn in recovering construction markets. To the bottom right, I think is a really important feature. We're operationally focused and we're disciplined. Our approach to risk is to be open-minded, but to bring clear thought to both risk and opportunity. So we do focus unashamedly on operational performance in quite granular detail. Some of the guys in the room will be looking forward to Q2 forecasts next week, I'm sure. I know I am. But within that, we need to be successful and to be operationally flexible. We need to empower our people at the sharp end within tramlines that balance operational responsiveness and risk management. Around that, we run our capital allocation dynamically, switch on, switch off, and we're differentiating ourselves through our sector knowledge and by reference to our integrated, sustainable business model. Last point, I think, we're delivering superior outcomes. We've executed our growth well in the last few years, both organically and inorganically. I'll come back to that a little later on. And we believe we're positioned to deliver more. Certainly the most obvious indicator of future demand is our workload, and that's at record levels. So that's sort of us in a nutshell. I'll add some colour to some of these points over the next few slides, but that really is the investment proposition in the context of our broader development strategy. So turning that sort of overview into what we're doing in practice, you've seen versions of this slide before, many of you. It starts on the left with a very high-level summary of our strategy. We like to keep it simple, it's consistent, it's around building on our core strengths, expanding those into adjacent sectors where we see opportunity, and to push the group further in its international development. The middle column summarises our most recent set of results, showing the business performing pretty consistently across the piece. As I said, a combination there of organic momentum and successful execution and integration of M&A, and we'll hear more about that a little later on. And that's supported by the record order book. For the future, to the right, we see our growth coming across the board, but in particular, we expect to see the benefits of the expansion that we've put into the support service offerings start to play through. So that, combined with accelerated investment in our own infrastructure, in our own back office and our own controls and people and systems, that's going to ensure that we can continue to control our growth and deliver value from it rather than just increased volume. Just broadening out the conversation a little bit, one of the descriptors I've heard, indeed I've used about Interserve over the years, is it's probably one of the largest organisations that no one's ever heard of. Whilst anonymity certainly has some advantages, I think it also comes with a lot of constraints. If the only potential customers you can go to are the ones that you're already working for, clearly that's going to make growth challenging. If you're not known as a great employer, a great place to develop your career, the best people might overlook you. It's pretty obvious stuff, and I think the same applies to the investment community. So, over the last few years, we've been deliberately seeking to build awareness in our business, in our brand, with a number of key audiences. The start for that was a deliberate step up in the level of investment in our communications team, and since then we've been building our perspectives around issues that we think matter in our industry, in our sector, things like skills, things like social value, the importance and value of infrastructure, of good governance, of learning and development in the workforce. So we've been participating in, sometimes leading the debate, but always with a typically Interserve approach, a very pragmatic focus on the practical application. What will this work? How will this work in practice? What will this look like in real life? And as I said, the reason for doing that, other than it's a good thing to be doing for the development of the industry, it's certainly a way of developing our brand. And building on that, we've been gaining more recognition for our group and for many of our constituent teams and indeed some of our individual people. Just a handful of recent awards that we've won, shown here across health and safety, environmental management, quality, overall business performance. So some recognition coming through. I think that's all really part of a virtuous circle that we're trying to ensure we keep investing in and delivering on, of be good, be seen to be good, attract and retain the best customers, people, investors. So maybe we're not, a household name just yet, but we're certainly better known and better regarded than we have been historically, and I think that's important. A very important part of that thought leadership, that differentiation, that brand development, and one that you've certainly heard us talk about before in such presentations, is our commitment to sustainability. For the avoidance of doubt, this is way broader and more fundamental than environmental stewardship, although that is indeed part of it. What sustainability is to us is at the core of our approach. It's how we think about our business. We assess performance broadly. We recognise there are many ingredients to business success, especially to sustained business success. So this thinking, some of the areas of thought and discussion on the slide there really drive our business. It's definitely a differentiator. It raises the bar for us on performance across a whole host of issues. Helps position us as a trusted partner with our customers through transparency, through our behaviours, through our values. It gives us a license to operate. And it's certainly a powerful ingredient in our employer brand and helps us answer those questions that can be quite difficult from new recruits as to, well, what sort of organisation are you? This definitely gives us a narrative and real evidence base to answer that question quite emphatically. And it helps us focus on our risk management and our cost management. So it wins us great people, it wins us business, it helps us run our business responsibility and to generate good financial value. So that's a little bit of context in terms of how we're thinking about our business and trying to develop it in a broader sense. And it's certainly been working. All the ingredients that I've talked about, our market, our product, our people, our strategy, our discipline, our thought leadership, our values, go into generating these sorts of outcomes, which were summarised on the slide I used up front. And whilst humility is something that I personally and we collectively do value, once in a while it is nice to stand back and reflect on the fact that we are delivering continuous improvement and sustained shareholder value creation. It's something we're all proud of and intend to keep driving forward. So turning back into the business a little bit more closely, starting with an overview. Of course, it's something we keep under constant review, but I think we can point to really good evidence that each of our businesses has been benefiting and continues to benefit from being part of our wider group. Within our overall development, our mix of where our operating profit comes from has changed quite significantly over the last few years, partly due to the ebb and flow of market conditions, of course, but more substantially through deliberate actions by us, focusing our efforts on performance improvement, working hard at work winning in selective markets, and raising and recycling around £400 million of capital in our M&A programme. The pie charts are the same size on this slide. The number in 2010 compared to the market consensus of 2015, there's about 60% growth in that total number, and of course a substantial shift towards support services being the major contributory source of that operating profit. So quite a substantial transformation amid the growth story. And to start to bring the focus of my opening into what we're going to talk about this morning, and to build on the comments I made earlier about our market positioning, we are well placed. Today's presentations are really going to focus on that left-hand column of what's driving growth and value creation in support services. But we believe that momentum is rising across infrastructure markets as well, generating demand growth for our construction business and for equipment service segments too. So I'm not going to run through this table point by point. You've got the slides in your pack, but I think the takeaway again is we're well positioned in each of our main business streams, and that the experience and the insight that we generate from our operational breadth, sectors, geographies is really valuable to our customer proposition. It helps us drive best practice, transfer knowledge around our organisation, and create competitive advantage. And similarly, in terms of what's driving the markets, again, today's focus will be on the left-hand column, but the backdrop is becoming more positive and is combining market growth with our strategic positioning in new or growing segments to underpin the positive outlook that we refer to. So presentations today are really going to shine the light on support services, and particularly those parts of support services that are newer and have been added in recently. The last point, just to re-emphasise, I talked about this earlier on, but we've grown quickly, we've changed quite a lot. There's quite a degree of newness in Interserve 2015. So I think it's important in that context just to reinforce the role that our discipline has in safeguarding our growth. At the core of that discipline really is the right people in the right place with the right values. Amongst our speakers this morning, you're going to hear from people who have got varying lengths of service with our company, but are all very experienced subject matter experts in this field, carefully chosen to fulfil key roles for us in delivering our growth agenda. To succeed in delivering for our customers, as I've said, we need to give our people a lot of freedom so that they can respond to live situations in real time and, of course, to seize opportunities. But that empowerment is balanced, in part through the culture of transparency, of communicating openly about performance, good and bad, up and down the organisation. And of course that behaviour, that culture is tested, corroborated, challenged by our systems, by our performance indicators, and of course by management just getting out and walking about. We have direct engagement at very senior levels in all significant new work-winning situations with real-time debate around our risk appetite, whether that's a big bid or a new market, so unashamedly hands-on. And as I've mentioned, we have been and are continuing to invest in our own infrastructure to ensure that our back office, that our controls, that our safeguarding keeps pace with our growth. So just to summarise my sort of 10-15 minute opening session, where are we? We're in markets that are strong and are improving. I think we're well positioned and we're investing in and growing our reputation. We've been driving strong performance. We think we can keep going. We're dynamic and flexible with where we put capital, and we're certainly ambitious, but that comes with discipline. So today, here's our agenda. You've got this slide in the deck. I guess 3 main sections really: frontline services, commercial FM, and then the Middle East around a coffee break. So we're going to start with frontline services in overview, and then with particular reference to our work in justice. So our speakers in this first section are Dougie Sutherland, a board colleague with whom I've been working since 2006, Dougie, I think, yeah. Yvonne Thomas joined us about 3.5 years ago to bid, to win, and now to lead our justice business. And we're delighted that Ian Porray has joined us this morning. Ian is the Director of Rehabilitation at NOMS, the National Offender Management Service. So he's our client in that Transforming Rehabilitation programme, the probation service that we've been delivering about a quarter of in England and Wales since February. So we'll hear from Dougie, Yvonne and Ian about the frontline services. Then Jeff Flanagan is going to talk about our private sector FM business. Jeff joined us about 4 months ago from one of our main competitors. So his reflections on why Interserve and what he's inherited, as well as what he's going to do with it, I think will be a great interest to you, I'm sure. After coffee, we're going to move on to the Middle East. We have our second guest speaker first, Colin Foreman. Colin is the news editor of MEAD, the Middle East Economic Digest. He's based in Dubai. MEAD, for those that don't know, is probably the most authoritative source of market insight on infrastructure and services across the whole region. So I think that perspective will be great. And then we're going to hear from 2 more speakers. First, a relatively recent joiner as well, Saeed Ahmed, who's based in Dubai, and then a rather more longer-serving colleague, Andy Vini, who's based in Doha. Each of those guys have pan-regional responsibility for FM and for oil and gas, respectively, and in Andy's case, for the other services that we deliver in Qatar. So we're going to have some time for Q&A after. It's dotted through the day, but we'll also have a wrap-up session at the end. So we'll try and keep it moving, but equally it's very important that you get to ask the questions that are on your mind. Although hopefully we'll be answering a lot of those in what we say in our presentations. So with that said, we're at your disposal. Please use the day to your advantage, and let's begin. So I think probably makes sense if Yvonne and Ian would perhaps come and sit up there with me, and Dougie's going to take the lectern first.